This is episode 57 with me, Bryan Teare.
Welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your life's journey. With your host, Bryan Teare.
Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, episode 57 today, and I'm excited to not be bringing you a new guest, but to be sharing a solo episode that I wanted to record to share a talk I recently gave at my high school. Now, I was recently honored to be invited back to my school as the guest speaker for the annual Summer Sports Awards, and I decided to bring together all the best things I've learned from this podcast and frame it around the aspects of becoming a champion to kind of tie in with the sports theme. Now, as you know, being a motivational speaker at an event was one of the items on my life list, so I was stoked to be able to cross that off. But more than that, I was excited to be able to share some of the best things I've learned from hosting this podcast for the last 57 weeks with a young audience about to go out into the real world. Now, I'd love to tell you it was all easy and natural, but that's far from the truth. But the funny thing is, once I got warmed up and into it, I really relaxed and actually ended up really enjoying myself. So much so that I'm now pumped to start, sort of getting into a speaking career myself. You can see some footage on my Instagram and Facebook page, which I've linked in the show notes. But if you know anyone looking for a speaker, please do let me know. Anyway, over to the episode. And in this one, you're going to learn the 10 characteristics for becoming a champion, how to start turning your vision into a reality, the 2 most important rituals to adopt right now, why your dreams are like road trips, how to find your purpose, and the 3 components of a winning team. Now, as always, you can get the links and resources I mentioned in the show notes, which you'll find at bryanteare.com/057. But for now, let's go hang out and check out the 10 components of a champion. All right, guys and girls, welcome back. And just you and I today, so getting a little bit cozy here. And I'm just kind of going to dive right in. And I started off the talk with a little story. And the story takes place 10 years ago. Now, on the day I'm recording this, it's exactly 3 years since I quit my job. But 10 years ago, I was sitting in a position quite similar to the students that I was speaking to in the audience. I was about to finish school, and I had no idea what I wanted to do when I left school. Now, I came from quite a big family. I've got 3 brothers, including a twin brother, and one of my older brothers was an engineer. So I thought, maybe I should give that a go. And I did, and I've shared this on the podcast before, but I did really well, and I did engineering for 2.5 years, and then I quit. And I decided to search for something more meaningful and something more fulfilling in my life. I felt like there was more to life than what I was experiencing. And that, as I said, was exactly 3 years ago. Now, since then, I became fascinated by what separates the successful people from everyone else, what separates the good from the great, and what separates a challenger or a competitor from a champion. And the fact that I was speaking to school kids, and in particular sportsmen and women, I decided to share these biggest aspects that I've learned from my podcast guests as what I called the 10 characteristics of a true champion. So number 1 is a vision. All champions have a bigger picture vision of what they want to create. This could be something like winning an Olympic gold medal, the Rugby World Cup, or breaking a new world record. Whatever the vision is, it doesn't really matter, but the fact is all great champions have a bigger picture vision of what they want to work towards and create. Now, the fact is, if you don't know where you are going, you're never going to get there. All right? If you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. And it's easy to get stressed out, especially the people I was speaking to was, teenagers, people at school. And it's easy to stress out about how do I need to figure out my entire vision right now? But the answer is you don't. It will and can change over time. The the main thing is that you pick something bigger that you're working towards right now, and then start working towards it. And this isn't the thing that you think you're supposed to do or that other people expect you to do. But this is really asking, like, what do you really want in your life? What is it that you want to create? What is it that you want to work towards? And then taking small steps to get there. Then the question becomes how? How do we start working towards this vision? And that is where number 2 comes in, which is goals. Now, once they have a vision, champions turn their vision into achievable goals. There's a bit of a misperception, though, where people think if they've missed their goal, or they fall short, or they don't make it, that they're a failure and they beat themselves up because they're not good enough. But what I want you to do is to start thinking of goals as milestones or landmarks to assess your progress en route to your vision, all right? So it's not like that's the main thing, but those are kind of achievable benchmarks to get to that vision. Now, the other thing when setting goals is the important thing is not the goal itself, but who that goal forces you to become. All right? So it's not the thing that we're trying to get, but in the process of setting this goal, it forces us to become the type of person who achieves big goals. So there's a bit of a distinction there, and I want you to kind of let that sink in, all right? Now, I mentioned process. That brings us to number 3 in our 10 characteristics, which is focus on the process, or be present. All right, so once they have goals that they're working towards a vision, champions then focus on the process. And I want to paint this picture by asking, which I asked the audience, is who likes road trips? You know, I put my hand right in the air straight away. I love road trips. And then I made an even easier example, and I said, everyone that's leaving tonight has to get home safely, right? That's kind of like what everyone's aim was. Everyone wanted to get home safely. But the headlights on your car don't need to be able to shine all the way to your front door for that to happen, right? Your headlights just have to shine far enough in front of you that you can see that next turn or that next stop street or the next dog that's running in the road, all right? And to make the next step. So you don't need to see the entire road map planned out in front of you and kind of the how of how you're going to make this happen. You just need to see far enough in front of you to take the next step, all right? So what's the next tiny action you can take to work towards your goals and your vision, all right? And if you're getting stuck and you feel like you're not achieving your goals or you don't know what to do next or it feels intimidating, it's because your next step is too big and you need to go smaller, all right? So there's no such thing as a next step that's too small, all right? In some cases, it might be embarrassingly small, but whatever it takes for you to make progress is what you need to set as your next step, all right? And another kind of big consideration with a vision is it's along the way, new opportunities are going to pop up that you could never have imagined when you originally set your vision. And the example I gave in the talk was when I first quit my job, I'd never even listened, hardly even heard of podcasts before. But if I just stayed focused on what I believed was my goals and my vision at that time, I would have completely ignored the opportunities that popped up, including creating a podcast and the amazing people I've met since then. And actually, the main work that I do now is related to an interview I did on my podcast, which all came about by the relationships I grew. All right. So if your head's up in the clouds and all you can think about is your goal and like one day when I get there, you're going to miss out on the opportunities and the connections and the relationships that are right next to you right now. All right, so have a bigger picture, but don't ignore the opportunities that you have today. And this is how the vision kind of changes and evolves over time. All right, so number 4 in our 10 characteristics of a champion is habits and rituals. Now, I'm sure most of you have watched tennis on TV, and you've seen Rafael Nadal meticulously, every single serve, bouncing the ball the same amount of times and playing with his shirt and kind of pulling his pants out of his bum. He's not doing that because he's got a major wedgie, all right? Another example is Dan Biggar, the Welsh fly half from the Rugby World Cup 2015. Before every kick, no matter how easy or difficult, right in front of the poles, out wide, Dan Biggar would do the same pre-kick routine every single time. It was kind of like a combination of getting ready to fight and preparing to ride a horse, all right? He's like kind of dancing around, playing with his shirt sleeves. But he's not doing this to make people laugh. In fact, if people had been laughing, he wouldn't have even heard them. And that's because champions do things that get them in flow, all right? So when we create habits, the most important action to achieve our goals become automatic, and we don't need to think about doing them anymore. And the two most important rituals that I want to share with you guys today is the morning ritual and the evening ritual. Because the bottom line is, during the day, things are going to get chaotic. Things are going to pop up. People are going to demand your attention. Things are going to go completely as you hadn't planned. But if you can bookend your day with the first hour or two and the last hour or two where you are doing things under your control and kind of like using that time to fuel yourself, you're going to set yourself up to win. And a little aside here, checking social media and emails does not count as part of a morning or an evening routine. All right, I'll just leave it there. All right, number 5 in our characteristics of a champion. Champions all look after their bodies. All right, and this doesn't mean you have to look a certain way, but if you want to get good results in life, you need to be taking care of your health. Now, after I quit my engineering degree, I went backpacking through Asia for a couple of months. And then I came back and became a certified personal trainer. Now, I'm not saying you need to go to those lengths to learn and take care of your health, but there's 3 pillars that I want to speak about, and it's basically eat, move, and sleep. All right? On eat. If it came out of the ground or it had a mom, you're probably okay to eat it. If it came in a box or a bag or you can't pronounce the ingredients, then you should probably be avoiding it. Those 2 rules alone can drastically improve your health. In terms of exercise, I used to see so many examples of people who thought they had to jog and hit the gym every single day of the week, even twice a day. But the furthest, that couldn't be further from the truth, sorry. You can lift weights a couple times a week, sprint once a week, and make sure you're moving around more. But just know that you don't need to do more to get better results, all right? Just see it as movement rather than going to the gym and then spending the rest of the day sitting in a chair. And then the final part of health, which I think is the most underestimated, ignored, and important area, and that is sleep. All right, sleep is not what you do when you're doing nothing else. Sleep isn't something that you just kind of fall back to when all your friends are offline or you're bored or you've run out of things to do during the day. All right, sleep is a vitally important component of health, and it's a time when your body repairs itself and makes mental connections from things you've kind of picked up along the way during the day. All right, number 6 is probably my favorite, and it's passion or purpose, all right? All great champions, you could do these things I've mentioned until now, but if you don't connect it to a passion or a purpose, something bigger than yourself, you're not going to go as far as you can. So all champions have a bigger passion or a purpose connected with what they're doing. One of the most common questions I get nowadays is, how do I find my passion? All right, how do I live out my life purpose? And when I spoke to Tom Asacker recently, I think it was episode 54. I could be mistaken, but I'll put it in the show notes. Tom said that the problem is we're trying to think of our passion. All right, we're trying to think up an answer. And what's wrong with that is your passion is not out there. It's in here. All right, your passion's not out there. It's in here. And I'm kind of pointing at my heart here, at my chest. And what he means by that is you can sit and try and think of your passion all you want, but you find your passion when you start experimenting and you do things. All right, when I quit my job and came back from Asia, I mentioned I was a personal trainer, but I also did health coaching. I did admin for a friend's business. I ran social media for a couple of brands. I did promotions and modeling stuff. I've done freelance work. I've done podcast editing and consulting and now life coaching. And I've just tried things that interested me and that I thought I'd be really good at. All right? And when you can kind of combine the things you're really good at with the things you enjoy and the things that people need, that is your sweet spot. All right? So at the center of those three things is where you're going to find true purpose and true meaning. So my advice to the students and my advice to you listening is get really good at something and then use that skill to create your ideal lifestyle. And this doesn't take as long as you think it might, all right? Speaking of getting good at something, number 7 in our 10 things is champions all focus on their strengths. The best sportsman in the world, let's use Usain Bolt, one of my favorite athletes, as an example. Usain Bolt is not trying to be the best everything in the world, all right? He's not trying to be a good tennis player and a Formula One driver and a cricketer and a golfer. He identified at an early age that he was really good at running. He enjoyed running. And so he focused on that and went all in on that thing. All right? It reminds me of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 principle, which says 20% of your efforts are going to produce 80% of your results. All right? 20% of the things you're doing are going to generate 80% of the benefit in your life. That also means that 80% of the things you're doing is only going to create 20% of the benefits. All right? So what does that 20% look like for you? What 20% of things could you do that would make everything else unnecessary or easier? All right? And as a way to kind of get clear on these things, on this 20%, the things you enjoy doing, things you're good at, I included a link to my ebook, which I wrote called Do You Know You, which is 5 exercises for getting greater self-awareness. And I've included that in the show notes, which you can find at bryanteare.com/057. All right, number 8. Champions all take risks, all right? When I quit my job 3 years ago, I had no plan B. And I'm not saying that to brag. I actually don't recommend people do that if they can help it, because it creates a lot of stress, all right? I would love to say it's been smooth sailing, but that's not the case at all. There were weeks where I didn't know how I would buy groceries and months where I didn't know how I'd pay rent, all right? But champions acknowledge the setbacks and then they stick with it, all right? How long are you willing to stick it out, to hang in there, all right? One of my favorite sayings is, a ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are for. So you can play safe and stick in your comfort zone your whole life, but you're never going to know what you're capable of and you're never going to grow. Number 9 on our 10 things, and we're wrapping up here. Champions all have a strong support team. Now, this doesn't mean they play a team sport, but there are 3 components to a winning team that all champions have. The first of these is a mentor or a coach. All right, coming back to Usain Bolt, he couldn't have done what he did on his own. All right, and this doesn't mean that his coach had to be a better runner than he did, but he had to be able to generate the best out of Usain Bolt. All right, his coach wasn't clocking 9-second 100-meter runs, 100-meter sprints, but he could guide Usain Bolt to bring out his best. And I'm really privileged to be able to do this with other people in my work as a coach. But find someone who can bring out your best and who finds that spark in you and inspires you to kind of live that out and become a champion. All right. And then in terms of a mentor, similar sort of thing. So go out and find people who are doing things you want to be doing. It doesn't even have to be in person. It could be people online. And then go and model what they do. All right. Now, just because you get a mentor or a coach doesn't mean that you're not good enough because you can't do things on your own. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Reaching out and asking for help shows that you are prepared and that you are committed to doing something even greater. All right, that you're serious about making your dreams a reality and achieving your goals. So don't be afraid to ask for help. The second component of a winning team is your peers or your environment. Now, there's a saying by Jim Rohn that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And what he means by that is if you're going to hang out with people who all they want to do on the weekend is party and go out and drink and smoke, you're going to be dragged down to that in some way or another. Eventually, even if you don't think right now, eventually you will be dragged down, all right? If you want to do something inspiring and do something bigger in your life and achieve massive goals, you need to find people that inspire you and then spend more time with those people, all right? So never be the smartest person in the room. The third part of a winning team is actually number 10 in our list of characteristics of a champion. And I decided to leave this one on its own because it's that much more important. And number 10 is yourself. It's you, all right? It's your belief. If you want to be a champion, you need to have a deep inner knowing that it's all going to work out, all right? That you're going to make it, all right? Champions all know one way or another that they're going to get there. And it's not always how we imagine things. We might end up achieving something completely different to what we initially pictured, but you have to know that there's something bigger and better waiting for you and that you will make it. All right. So if you can do all these things I've listed, combined with this powerful self-belief, you will become unstoppable. And I believe that. See what I did there? So in conclusion, I kind of recapped the characteristics for the students. And the first one was champions have a powerful vision. Once they have a vision, they break that down into achievable goals. All right. Once they've set goals, they focus on the process. Once they're focusing on the process, they develop habits and rituals. All right. Number 5 is champions all take care of their health. Number 6, they connect to a bigger passion or purpose. Number 7, they focus on their strengths. Number 8, they take risks. Number 9, they build up a support team. And number 10, they believe in themselves. But here's the thing, guys. These things aren't just reserved for the Usain Bolts or the Lewis Hamiltons or the Roger Federers of the world. You are all champions in your own right, and we can all be champions of our own lives. You just have to decide if you're going to settle for good or if you'll choose to be great. If you're happy being a competitor or a challenger, or if you will be a champion. Thank you. And that's it, guys. That was the talk I gave to my high school. If you enjoyed this one, I'd love for you to share it around on social media and shoot me a tweet at Bryan Teare to let me know your biggest takeaway. Obviously, this was my talk, so for me to give a takeaway is kind of weird. But I think the biggest thing that I want to share again is like your passion is not out there, it's in here. All right. And if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. So experiment with things. Try things that are interesting to you. It doesn't require you to quit your job. Start something on the side in your spare hours. Explore that, learn a skill, grow, and then start seeing how you can turn that into something more. All right. And this can change over time. As always, you guys can get the links and resources I mentioned in this episode, including the free ebook on self-awareness, at bryanteare.com/057. Let me know if you guys like the solo episode, if I should do some more in the future. And make sure you go on and subscribe at quarterlifecomeback.com to get more episodes like this as they come out. Thanks again for joining me this week, guys. And until next time, keep creating your quarter life comeback.
Thanks for listening to the Quarter Life Comeback. Get started today by visiting bryanteare.com.